All she wanted was a gift for her grandma. What she got was a full-blown interrogation, until her mother stepped in and shut it all down. It all started with a necklace. A small one, simple, sterling silver, no diamonds, no gold, no brand name, just a quiet piece on a black velvet display at Preston & Coe Jewelers, a high-end boutique tucked inside a shopping plaza in Santa Clarita, California. That necklace had been sitting there for weeks. To most folks who passed by, it wasn't worth a second glance. But to Amani Ross, 15 years old and stubbornly independent, it was everything. She'd seen it once before, 2 Saturdays ago, on her walk home from work at the Valencia Library. She wasn't supposed to be anywhere near a jewelry store, not with sneakers and a faded hoodie, not with chipped nail polish and a used phone case. But she peeked in anyway, and there it was, just sitting there. It reminded her of the one her grandmother used to wear, the one that got stolen in a break-in 2 summers ago. It wasn't flashy, but it felt right. So Amani started saving. She skipped snacks after school, helped a few neighbors with yard work for cash, logged her savings in her phone every night like clockwork. $50 here, 10 there, until today, Saturday, when she had just enough. Her shift at the library had been long, shelving books, answering questions, wiping tables. She was tired, her feet ached. But the idea of finally buying that necklace gave her enough fuel to walk those extra 6 blocks to the store. The bell above the glass door jingled gently as she stepped inside. And that's where the story begins. But not the way it should have. Not the way any teenager would hope. The second Amani stepped into Preston & Co, she felt it. The air inside wasn't warm, but it wasn't cold either. It was just tight, like everything was under pressure. Soft jazz played overhead. The floor gleamed so much she could see her sneakers in it. The kind of place where people whisper instead of talk, and where they look at you twice before saying a word. She paused just inside the door, tucking her phone into her back pocket and straightening the hoodie she'd tied around her waist. Her backpack slid off one shoulder, and she adjusted it quickly, like she knew it might already be drawing too much attention. Behind the glass counter stood Margaret Ellison, the kind of woman who never missed a thing. Late 60s, white blouse, pearl earrings, reading glasses on a chain. Her lips moved slightly as she finished tallying something behind the register, but the moment she spotted Amani, her hand stilled. Amani smiled. A little polite one, the kind her mom had taught her. Margaret didn't smile back. Amani walked slowly toward the necklace display. Same shelf, same corner, 3rd row from the left. She didn't reach out. Not yet. Just crouched a little to get a better look, careful not to breathe too hard on the glass. Margaret didn't move from behind the counter, but her eyes didn't blink. Another customer, a white woman in heels and sunglasses, strolled in behind Amani. Margaret lit up like someone flipped a switch. "Hi there, welcome to Preston's. Let me know if there's anything I can help you with today." The woman nodded, walked straight toward the diamond earrings. Amani turned slightly, raised a hand. "Excuse me? I was wondering if I could see—" Margaret's smile dimmed again. "Oh, sure, which one?" she asked, voice flat. Imani pointed at the necklace through the glass. "That one, on the black velvet square." Margaret stepped around the counter slowly. Her shoes clacked across the tile like a ticking clock. As she leaned down to unlock the case, her eyes flicked toward Imani's backpack. "You can leave your bag by the counter," she said, without looking directly at her. Imani blinked. "Sorry?" "Just to avoid knocking anything over. Store policy." Imani hesitated. She'd never heard of that kind of policy before, but she unzipped her bag halfway and held it out. "There's just books in my wallet. I'm not going to touch anything else, I promise." Margaret didn't answer. She pulled the necklace out with a pair of white gloves and laid it carefully on a velvet mat. Imani stepped closer, her breath catching a little. Seeing it this close again made her chest flutter. "Do you know how much it is with tax?" she asked softly. Margaret pulled a small calculator from her apron. "It's $92 even." Imani pulled out her phone to open the budgeting app she'd been using for weeks. That's when Margaret's gaze hardened. Imani noticed, but she tried to ignore it. She tapped the screen, eyes moving through the numbers. She had 94.17. Just enough. She smiled again, finally letting herself feel proud. "I think I'll take it," she said, voice quiet but firm. Margaret didn't move. She looked at the phone, then at Imani, then at the door. "Are you here with someone?" she asked. Imani looked up, confused. "No, just me." Margaret paused, her lips thinned, and then she turned, walking toward the back office with the necklace still in her gloved hand. Amani stood there, unsure whether to follow or wait. She looked around. The other customer had already left. She was alone now. A strange silence took over the room, but in the back, Margaret was already picking up the phone, with the words "suspicious activity" on the tip of her tongue. Margaret didn't say emergency. She didn't say threat. She didn't even say theft. But the words she did use, they were just enough to flip the switch. "This is Margaret Ellison at Preston & Co. Jewelers on Lyons Avenue. I have a teenage girl here, black, wearing a gray hoodie, who's been hanging around the high-value cases. She looks nervous. She's been on her phone a lot. I just want someone to come check things out. You know, just in case." Just in case, that's how she said it, like she was doing everyone a favor. The dispatcher confirmed they'd send a unit. Margaret thanked her, hung up, and walked back into the showroom like nothing happened. Amani was still standing by the glass, fingers gently tracing the zipper on her backpack, trying to figure out whether she should sit down, speak up, or just leave. Something felt off, but she couldn't put her finger on it. She didn't know about the call. Not yet. Margaret smiled now, like everything was fine. "Sorry about the wait," she said, placing the necklace back on the counter. "Before we ring it up, would you mind taking your hands out of your pockets?" Amani blinked. "Huh?" "Just store policy, for security reasons." Amani looked down. Her fingers had been tucked halfway into the front of her hoodie, more out of habit than anything else. She slowly pulled them out, raising both palms like she was trying to prove something. "Okay," she said. "I'm not hiding anything." Margaret nodded. "Of course not." The front door opened again, but it wasn't the customer Amani was hoping for. Two officers stepped in, a man and a woman, both in uniform, both with straight faces. They walked straight toward the counter without even scanning the room. "Ma'am?" the male officer said, nodding toward Margaret. "Yes, that's her," Margaret whispered, just loud enough for them to hear. Amani's eyebrows knitted together. "Wait, what's going on?" The officers flanked her, not aggressively, but not casually either. They looked down at her like they were trying to assess a puzzle they hadn't quite solved yet. "We got a report of suspicious behavior in the store," the woman officer said, voice flat. "Mind telling us what you're doing here?" Amani's heart started pounding. "What? I'm here to buy a necklace. I've been saving for it for weeks." "Do you have ID?" I'm 15. The officer nodded slowly. "All right. Do you have anything in your pockets?" Amani's face flushed red. Her voice cracked. "No, I didn't take anything." The other officer's hand hovered near his belt. "We're just going to need you to step aside and empty your pockets, please." Amani looked over at Margaret, who avoided her eyes completely. This couldn't be happening. Not over a necklace. Not over standing too long in the wrong store with the wrong skin and the wrong clothes. She pulled out her phone. With shaking fingers, she opened her texts and tapped the most recent contact. Mom. She didn't even type. Just hit send location and then help. And across town, inside a beige office building with bulletproof windows, Nadia Ross saw the alert flash across her phone, and she stood up so fast her chair hit the wall. Officer Daniels, tall, stiff, and built like he used to play college ball, motioned Amani toward the far corner of the store. "Let's not make a scene. Just empty your pockets and we'll be done." Amani's voice was barely above a whisper. "I didn't take anything." Her hands trembled as she reached into her front pocket, slowly pulling out her phone, a wrinkled receipt, and $2 in quarters. That was it. She glanced toward Margaret, hoping, maybe praying, for some kind of help. Wait, she didn't steal anything, or, "I just got nervous." But nothing came. Margaret stood frozen behind the counter, arms crossed, eyes low. The woman officer, Ramirez, spoke this time. "Do you have a receipt for anything you purchased today?" "I didn't buy it yet," Amani said. "I just asked to see it. I have the money. You can count it." Ramirez took a small step back and glanced at Daniels. "Do you mind if we check your bag?" Daniels asked. Amani's voice cracked. "Why?" "It's procedure." "No," she said. I didn't take anything. You can ask her to check the display." Daniels' hand moved just slightly again, toward the walkie, toward the cuffs. His face was calm, but the tension in his jaw said otherwise. "I'm not going to tell you again." Amani's breath sped up. Her legs felt like rubber. For a second, her eyes burned, but she swallowed it. She wouldn't cry here, not here. And then, the bell over the door rang again, heels against tile, firm, steady, no hesitation. Nadia Ross entered like she belonged there. Her blazer hung open just enough to flash the badge clipped to her belt. Her eyes locked straight on her daughter. She didn't yell. She didn't ask. She just said one word, like it carried weight all on its own. Imani. Imani looked up. Mom. Daniels turned halfway, confused. Ramirez froze. Nadia stepped forward, slow and deliberate. She placed her body between the officers and her daughter without raising her voice or changing her tone. I got a message that my daughter was being detained. Is someone going to explain to me why? Daniels shifted uncomfortably. We received a call about a suspicious individual, the store associate. She's 15. She walked into a store, asked about a necklace. And now you've got your hand hovering over your cuffs? Ramirez spoke up. Ma'am, we didn't detain her. We were just asking questions, while flanking her like she's a threat, without a parent, without reason. Ramirez took a breath. And you are? Nadia reached into her inner jacket pocket and held up her credentials. Nadia Ross, supervisory special agent with the FBI. That girl is my daughter. Everything went still. Daniels looked like someone had pulled the rug out from under him. Ramirez stepped back. Margaret, who had been quietly pretending to organize the counter, visibly paled. Nadia turned to Imani. Her voice softened, but her expression stayed sharp. Did they touch you? Imani shook her head no, too stunned to speak. Did they accuse you? They asked me to empty my pockets, she said quietly. They were going to search my bag. Nadia turned back to the officers. Is there any reason this required 2 officers and immediate suspicion? Or was this just because she didn't fit your picture of someone shopping here? Daniels opened his mouth, closed it, then looked at Margaret. Nadia shifted her gaze to the counter. Is there a policy here that says teenagers can't shop alone? Or just black teenagers in hoodies? Margaret didn't answer, but silence in moments like this speaks louder than any lie. Margaret Ellison had worked at Preston & Combe for over 25 years. She'd seen engagement proposals, diamond returns after breakups, retirement gifts, and families coming back generation after generation. But in all her years behind that glass counter, she had never seen anything like this. The room was too quiet now. The officers had stepped back like they'd realized they weren't the ones in charge anymore. Ramirez looked down at her boots. Daniels cleared his throat, but the words didn't come. And Margaret didn't speak, didn't move, didn't blink. Because for the first time in a long time, someone had challenged her instinct, and they had a badge that outranked everyone in the room. Nadia Ross didn't posture, didn't throw her title around like a shield. She didn't need to. Her presence alone was enough. The way she stood next to her daughter with one hand lightly on her shoulder and the other gripping her ID badge, that was power. I want your badge numbers, she said to the officers, her tone still even. Now, Ramirez handed her a small card from her chest pocket. Daniels followed reluctantly. You'll be hearing from Internal Affairs, Nadia said, and I'll be filing a formal complaint with the Santa Clarita PD for the way you handled a child, because that's what she is, a child. Neither officer argued. They nodded, quietly stepping toward the door. But just before exiting, Daniels looked back at Imani. She didn't flinch, didn't look away. The door closed behind them, leaving only 3 people in the store, Imani, Nadia, and Margaret. Nadia turned, and now, for the first time, she walked slowly toward the counter. Margaret's fingers tapped against the glass, barely audible. She finally spoke, but her voice was smaller than it had been before. I didn't mean for it to go that far. I just thought... She seemed nervous. Nadia leaned in slightly. She's 15. She's wearing jeans and a hoodie. She had money in her hand. What exactly about her made you nervous? Margaret's eyes dropped. I just wanted to be safe. Safe from what? The silence thickened. Nadia didn't shout. She didn't need to. She was about to spend her hard-earned money on something special for her grandmother. She's been saving for weeks. Instead, she got surrounded by police like she was a threat because you didn't trust what you saw. Margaret whispered, I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't undo the damage. It doesn't erase the message you sent her, that she didn't belong. Amani stood behind her mom, arms crossed tight, face blank. But the way her jaw moved told a different story. She was clenching, holding it all in. Margaret swallowed. I can offer her the necklace. No charge. Nadia turned to her daughter. Amani? Amani looked up. Her voice didn't shake this time. I don't want anything from here. She slung her backpack over one shoulder, turned, and walked toward the door. Nadia gave one last look. Nothing dramatic, just long enough for Margaret to see exactly what she'd done, then followed her daughter out into the light. But the real weight didn't hit Margaret until the door clicked shut, and the glass case with that little silver necklace suddenly looked emptier than ever. The sun had started to dip lower behind the hills as they walked. Amani kept a few steps ahead, arms stiff at her sides. She didn't speak, didn't cry. Her eyes stayed forward like she was trying to walk all the emotions away. Nadia let her daughter lead the pace. Sometimes silence was better than forcing words into it. But after 2 blocks, Amani finally stopped. They were standing outside a frozen yogurt shop she used to visit after school. It was closed now. Lights off, chairs upside down on tables, but the memory of happier days was still inside the windows. Amani leaned against the brick wall and looked up at her mom. I didn't do anything. Her voice cracked, just once, but she caught it before it broke. Nadia stepped closer. I know. They looked at me like I was going to rob the place. I know. They didn't even ask her anything. They just came straight to me. Nadia nodded, slow and steady. I've been where you are. Amani finally let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. What was I supposed to do? Smile harder? Take my hood off? Dress nicer? Talk more polite? There's nothing you could have done, Nadia said. That part isn't on you. Amani bit the inside of her cheek, arms folding again across her chest. Then what's the point, Mom? What's the point of saving, being careful, staying out of trouble, doing everything right, if they still treat me like I'm wrong? Nadia looked away for a second, not because she didn't have an answer, because she didn't want to give her daughter the kind of answer she had to carry alone. But she turned back, and when she did, her voice was firm. The point is, you still walk in that store. You still ask about that necklace. You still save your money, and stand up straight, and speak with your full voice. You don't stop being you, just because someone else refuses to see it. Amani's eyes began to water. This time she didn't hide it. I hate that this is normal. It shouldn't be, Nadia said, but it is. And until it isn't, you hold your head high and make them uncomfortable with how sure of yourself you are. They stood there like that for a while. Quiet again, but different this time. Nadia pulled out her phone, opened her contacts, and tapped one of her colleagues. A minute later, she was speaking low into the mic. Yes, Officer Daniels and Officer Ramirez. Incident at Preston & Co. I want their body cams pulled before the footage gets tampered with. She hung up, looked back at Amani. Let me guess, Amani said, wiping her cheek. You're going to file paperwork. I'm going to do a whole lot more than that. Amani gave the tiniest smile. Can we just go home? Yeah, Nadia said, but not before we stop somewhere. Where? You'll see. They walked another block before stepping into a tiny jewelry shop tucked between a donut place and a dry cleaner. Nothing fancy, but it smelled like wood polish and old carpet. The kind of place where people knew your name. An older black woman stood behind the counter. Nadia smiled. Hi. We're looking for a silver necklace. Something simple. My daughter's got a birthday gift to buy. The woman smiled back. Well then, let's find something worth her saving for. Amani looked up, her fingers unclenched, and for the first time that day, her shoulders dropped just a little. But outside that new shop window, across town, a glass case sat quiet and untouched, holding a necklace no one wanted anymore. Later that night, Amani sat on the living room floor, the tiny brown bag from the second jewelry shop resting in her lap. She didn't open it yet, just ran her fingers across the top, feeling the weight of everything that had happened. Nadia sat on the couch behind her, reading a file, but she was watching too. Watching her daughter, not with fear or worry, but with pride. A kind of quiet pride only a mother knows, the kind that doesn't always say, I'm proud of you, but instead whispers, I see you, I know you, I believe you. I picked the one with the little heart charm, Amani said, finally speaking. Grandma's gonna like that one. She's gonna love it. Amani turned, looking over her shoulder. Do you think people like that lady ever change? Nadia put the file down. Some do, not all. But when you call something what it is, when you make people sit in their own silence, sometimes it forces them to think harder the next time. I didn't like how I felt. You weren't supposed to. Amani nodded slowly. I'm still mad, though. That's okay. Be mad. Just don't let it turn you into something you're not. The room went quiet again. Not awkward, just real. Then, finally, Amani opened the bag, pulled the box out, flipped the lid. There it was. Her necklace. Paid for with her own money, earned with effort, kept through everything, and bought on her terms. She smiled. It wasn't wide, but it was real. And Nadia? She smiled too, because that necklace wasn't just a gift for Grandma anymore. It was a reminder that no matter how people see you, your worth is not up for debate. That doing the right thing doesn't always feel good right away, but it matters. And that when someone tries to shrink you, the most powerful thing you can do is keep standing tall. Sometimes the lesson isn't about fighting back. It's about refusing to be small. If this story moved you, made you angry, made you think, or made you reflect, share it. Start a conversation. Speak up when it matters. Because silence has never protected the right people.